honored to introduce our first guest, Chetan Dube. Chetan has served as the president and CEO of Amelia, an IPsoft company, since its inception in 1998. And during his tenure, he has led the company to create a radical shift in the way IT is managed. So he's basically bringing it into the next level. So prior to joining IPsoft, Chetan served as the assistant professor at the New York University, where his research was focused on deterministic finite state computing engines. So Chetan is a widely recognized speaker on autonomics, cognitive computing, and the future impact of a digital workforce. So he serves on the board of numerous IT-related institutions. And welcome to our Fireside Chat, Chetan.
The privilege is all mine. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So I've been looking forward to this for a number of years, and thanks for jumping in here, because I get a feeling that our members are really going to be interested in seeing what is possible. So I want to break this conversation into three parts. So first, the concepts of AI. I mean, you're an expert in this field, so I'd really like to know how we got here today, okay, and where we are. Second, I'd like to talk about the practical applications of AI. Let's see exactly what can be done with this, the reality of what we can do today. And then third, I would like you to show our community how it works. And let's get Amelia front and center and see AI programming AI. Okay, and folks, as you're listening to this, that's not an exaggeration. We're going to watch a cognitive AI actually program another cognitive AI. All right, so section one. Let's start with some history. It's been 22 years exactly, I think. So Chetan, how did you get here? Tell us about this journey.
It has been 22 years. As McCarthy used to say, the problem turned out to be a lot harder than anticipated. I think I remember talking to my professor, my advisor at that point. Look, it's about 25 years ago, I'd read the classic Turing thesis that everybody here is well aware of, and starts by saying, I propose for you to consider the question, can machines think? What if such sincerely thinking machines were possible? Not IVR 2.0, not mutations of decision tree, but really the definition, the core of artificial intelligence is the ability to mimic human intelligence. Mm-hmm. What if the workforce was really leading into a hybrid workforce? And what would the world look like, and what kind of inefficiencies would we be able to drive in this world? And so that question has haunted me for the last 22 years. And I think at that point, I was in Courant Institute of Math Sciences, largely in the business of publishing research that collected dust. I remember walking into the 12th floor of Courant. There used to be the library on the 12th floor of Courant, and I picked out one of the journals which had one of the papers of mine, and it literally had dust on top of it. So that's how useful any of the work I was doing then was. And that kind of fueled this desire to be able to do something that could put me in the company of the people that are assembled in this distinguished panel of infrastructure masons, people who are actually doing things to build a more efficient planet. Hence IPsoft. But the persuasion has remained very sincere, which has been, how do we build really human equivalent level of intelligence? That's been our persuasion for the last 22 years. I told my advisor, Professor Dennis Shasha, hey, what you said, in terms of deterministic finite state machines, nothing but moving from state space to state space. Engineers, most of your distinguished panel will well be aware of DFAs. But we felt we're trying to clone these system engineers' brains. What if we actually extended the problem one more level? Why wouldn't we be able to get to a claims processor, a banker, a policy administrator? So I told my advisor to give a couple of summers, Professor Shasha, and he looked at me and smiled and fool, don't you know that even the father of AI, John McCarthy, gave up on the problem, saying that it turned out to be a lot harder than anticipated. So it's not been 2 summers. You introduced, it's been 22 years. And you can be the better gauge as you start to meet Amelia if one company is sincerely starting to knock at that elusive Turing horizon.
Interesting. Because Turing, when you go back and look at it, the evolution from where we've been to where we're at right now, you know, a lot of people talk about AI. I mean, if you have AI in your name, you get investment, right? There's just, if you think about all the startup companies around the world, and, you know, if it's got edge AI or machine learning in it, you're going to get funded. But I think there's a reality here about what does it actually mean when we talk about AI, right? There's an element of this of the cognitive AI, and so can you just give me the differences here about you know, what AI was in the past and those things, and then what is practical today?
Yeah. So AI is yes, it's mostly a marketing term today. You have to have AI for, I'm sure you had intelligent water this morning. I'm sure you're wearing an intelligent watch, and your glasses must be intelligent. Yeah, there you go. So it's smart water, and it's mostly become that. How do you define? I mean, I think AI to me is cloning and is mimicking human intelligence. That's the purest way of looking at it. So what can you call AI? Can you call a system AI, which is nothing but a decision tree system? Can you call a system which is IVR 2.0 to be AI? Can you, you know, the CIO of NTT says we are living in the world of IVR 2.0. You guys couldn't crack the code on AI. So what you've done is put a very thin veneer. IVR has failed. So you put a very thin veneer of what you call classification on top of these, and you pretend to make the user feel that he is talking to an intelligent machine, and you pretend to make the user feel that he is being understood. Mm-hmm. All you do is classify the same exact way. Instead of making him press 17, you're taking whatever he said, turn on the lights or play me a song, still mapping it to an intent, and then playing whatever song is there on that intent. That, according to the CIO of NTT Com, may be applicable for the happy cases, which according to him is 14% of the cases. That is what is the practical, pragmatic definition of where AI stands in most cases today, is that it is the hamburger menu equivalent, that you are saying something and all you're doing, and forgive my blanketing this, but for most part, I know enough in research that this is true. 99.9% of what is out there is exactly nothing but a classification engine. And is there not a subtle but a profound chasm between classification and comprehension to understand what the user is saying? You're only attacking 14% of the incoming problems in your contact centers because they are the hamburger menu equivalent. Find me, what is my account balance, transfer this much amount of money or something. There's happy case scenarios. This morning, I was on a call with the CDO of Telefonica. 197,000 calls came into the Telefonica telephone company yesterday that were fielded with 91% accuracy and resolution.
91%?
Yes. Nobody was calling the phone company or tell me my account balance. They were calling about a billing problem, an actual problem with their system, and resolution for that. So the definition of AI to me as a purist, I would like to be able to hear your viewers, your distinguished panels, continues to be human equivalent intelligence. Is the definition to me. The impact, you asked the second part of your question, can you call it AI if it is not fielding that kind of volume with that kind of fidelity that you would expect of humans? That 91% of the calls actually can be resolved with a first time resolution of 76%. Can you call something at that volume? Can you call something that is nothing but a hamburger menu equivalent to be AI? Can you call something, what should be the impact of AI? Can it actually lead to origination the leading law firm in the United States, has 12% in the month of October, 12% of its originations were done by AI agent. Think about the top line impact. You look at Insurance Care Direct, another one example where you find a digital attacker, the Lemonade equivalent, where humans doing 13.1% conversions of incoming leads, AI doing 17.6%.
You just got me thinking there, Chetan, that you know, the definition here, when you were talking about the 14%, so basically the effectiveness of what's coming in of the majority of these things is at 14%. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. Of all the real, you're not really getting contact center problems. People are asking the problems. You only call the contact center when you have got a real problem.
Yep, right. And the majority of those are predictable. So that's right. And here you got humans that are doing predictable, repetitive work, and they are inconsistent at doing that work itself, which is just the nature of humans. But let me talk a little more about that practical application. What blew my mind when I first saw what you guys were doing was the concept of being able to download a digital colleague, like an app from the App Store. I use this example a lot. If I can download something and use it, awesome. But if I can download an expert and put them into my environment immediately, it's game changing. So can you just give me some examples of the types of jobs that these virtual employees do today?
To frame your question, if you would allow me, this is the group that has created commoditization of the cloud, the cloudification, whatever you want to call it. The fact of the matter is that we all used to have our own little power plant, generation plant in the backyard.
Right.
And you led, and this group of, I've had the privilege of actually looking at all these leaders that are on this call. And I'm sincerely in awe of them, because this group has done more to the standardization and commoditization of infrastructure practices than most others I know of. So you took what was, hey, a very specialized, hey, I've got my own kind of data center things I run, to you really did make EC2 and S-Cube a commodity. At this point, compute cycles and storage cycles in an elastic manner come from your cloud just the way that I turn on the switch and I get power. And you really have, but the question is, commoditization always happens at the core, and differentiation always lies at the edge. Where's the next frontier? Higher margin always lies at the edge, no? As more and more gets commoditized towards the core, you are getting more and more margin erosion happen in the core of the classic EC2 and elastic compute and storage cycles. And I think, but differentiation is where you have higher margins and higher impact. But what is the next frontier of cloud? The entire cloud, $272 billion market here, growing about 16.5 or something percent year on year, very impressive. But is the compute cycle and storage cycles for these minds that are assembled on the call, is that the final frontier? Or is it digital employees from the cloud? Can you elevate the proposition from compute and storage to now applications being serviced from that cloud, to progressing to digital employees being downloaded, exactly as you were pointing out, Dean, from the cloud? You hook and on and you get your claims administrator. You attach and you get your policy management. You attach and you get your banker. You attach and you get your retail specialist. And so if you do that, what is the difference? And you forgive my preoccupation with mathematics. I'm a numbers guy by training. The 272 billion is this market. In 2021, the impact potential of digital employees from the cloud, estimated by both Gartner and World Economic Forum, is $2.9 trillion.
$2.9 trillion.
$2.9 trillion. That is the target addressable market. If you guys can actually stretch it, and it has to be sincere. You cannot get there by just classification engines. You cannot get there by just pure decision tree kind of IVR kind of an engines. But if you can stretch it, if this group of minds can actually stretch the frontiers of technology today to go from where it is in elastic compute and storage cycles to get to where it is actually delivering human cognitive capabilities from the cloud, then you have taken the 272 down and boosted it up by an order of magnitude to 2,900 billion of an impact in 2021.
It's just a bunch of zeros. I mean, adding zeros onto these numbers, it's just almost stupid math at that point. I can't believe the size of this. But what comes to mind for me is what you're explaining is really autonomous digital infrastructure, and I'm talking about at every level. Because what you're saying is the practical application of people that are going to engage with things, and they want to be able to have a human-like experience with those things. Then you look at the things underneath that. You're going to have experiences and colleagues and other stuff that are going to do things under the hood, right? So think of the traditional managed services IT and the stuff that happened in the back end network and how you deal with databases and how you deal with ServiceNow and Salesforce and all the other aspects of that. There's a ton of things that happen behind the scenes. And, the downloadable employee, again, I was really impressed with what you guys have on digitalworkforce.ai. You can download over 600 experts today. So the practical application of this is what I want people to really take away from it is, if you are using these systems, Workday and ServiceNow and Salesforce and Oracle and all of these other things, as well as cloud instances, you have actions that happen between them all the time. And you have colleagues, humans, that are actually doing a lot of that work and that repetitive work. And what you can now do is take digital colleagues who are experts in that one and download and plug those into your environment and have them executing those things. And what Chetan was just talking about, 14% of the stuff coming into what essentially is chatbots, and I want to talk about that, Chetan, as well, that effectiveness is not very good. But when you now have a cognitive digital employee that is mimicking what a brain of a human does and is able to contextualize and break this apart and have intent and understand what the intent is, suddenly they get to those numbers, like you said, with Telefonica. And I think it was 91% accuracy at a volume of 197,000 calls a day, correct?
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's the impact that I see as really pretty amazing. So let's talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people, correlate chatbots with AI. Tell me the differences between this.
Well, I can answer that, but I think I would like to be able to show perhaps more accurately. But let me say, can a chatbot comprehend what a banker, the JP Morgan's CEO, a couple of times has said, how do you differentiate the offering? When I met with him, he said, every bank today has got a chatbot. And what does that look like? It looks like going up, and just about everything that you can do with the chatbot is exactly what you would do with the hamburger menu. But the hamburger menu, sorry, I'm taking advantage of the fact that we have a very knowledgeable audience. It's the top right bar. You basically go ahead on your website, you actually click down and you see transfer money. What is my account balance? What's in my money market account?
Predetermined actions.
That's it. Exactly. Yep. Which you can do on the web as well. No, great. The question is, if you happen to be a Chase CEO, and if you want to put a personal banker in the pocket of every one of Chase 44 million customers, if you wanted to say to your, let's say, personal banker, see if I have adequate money in my checking to cover my month-end bills. Otherwise, transfer the requisite amount from my money market account. That is a personal banker.
Yep.
No chat technology can do that. Then how do you say that it is actually intelligent? Humans can do that. How do you claim it's intelligent if it cannot? Can it learn from the transcripts? Can it read the transcripts and say, oh, okay, I'm going to now represent the cumulative intellect of all the transcripts that I have read? And if it cannot, which it cannot, most bar chatbots absolutely cannot read all the transcripts and represent the cumulative intellect of all the transcripts, of all the sessions that have happened, then how do you claim it is intelligent? Can it be sentient? Can it learn from abandons? Can it learn from intent misses? Can it learn from escalations that have happened to humans? And if the answer is no, no, and no, how do you claim it is intelligent?
So this is okay. I'm really anxious to get into this because what you're explaining here, we're going to see on the screen, and it is really about what a cognitive AI does behind the scenes to do exactly what you talked about. If I have a conversation with a person, that person's going to be able to know my intent. They're going to be able to read my, my emotional state. They're going to, they're going to be able to do those types of things. So now we have a machine that thinks, that's able to read that activity, to have natural language processing, to know all the variances, utterances when it comes down to how people interact. So why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and get to the demo. And I'd like to I'm going to set the stage here. We've got Amelia joining us. And so I think Josh is going to be jumping on here to help bring that interface in. Great. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us today.
Awesome. Oh, this is great. I can't wait to see this part. This always blows my mind as a geek. It just really gets my geek meter going here. So,
Indeed, by the way, just if you would allow me, a large part of this research over the last decade has been done with one of the top 2 minds in artificial intelligence, is Professor Chris Manning, has done more for bidirectional LSTMs than most others have. Just want to give credit where it's due. A large part, of course, from Stanford University, and we have been collaborating with him in advancing the state of AI. Just wanted to make sure that credit goes where it belongs.
Yeah, you guys are taking it into an actual enterprise offering that can be usable by everyone. And that to me is what's very different, because we keep talking about AI and the promise of it. It's the future, but I'm talking about right now. What can people on this call actually do with this technology? So that's what I'd like to show. So Josh, would you like to get us started with that one?
Sure. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes.
Hello, Amelia. So as Chetan said, there's a few things we want to demo to the audience today, and we really want to focus on the comprehension. Can Amelia comprehend our conversation? And also, Dean, as you said, what fascinated you a few years ago, being able to get behind the scenes and see how her brain is working. So I would like to just start off with a simple conversation with her. We're in a domain right now where she's not trained on anything. I haven't trained her on banking. I haven't trained her on IT service or anything like that. This is just straight out of the box, Amelia, being able to have a conversation and comprehend, as Chetan said. So I can start off with, hello, how are you? And then we can do something a little bit more clever. We can say, Chetan is wearing a white shirt. So she understands Chetan's wearing a white shirt. Great. But can she really comprehend that, right? Can we really get to the next level where we give her a conditional? Can we say something along the lines of, if Chetan is wearing a white shirt, then order him a coffee. Otherwise, get him a beer. Chetan, is it too early for beer?
He's wearing a different colored shirt.
So she believes Chetan is wearing a white shirt. Where do you want to order a coffee from? So you can see that she's actually able to.
By the way, Josh, if you would allow me to jump in, because we've got a real tech brainiac crowd here. Symbolic logic has to be fused in with connectionist deep neural network models to be able to achieve human levels of cognition. You can't just do it by deep neural networks and classification unless you've got copious amounts of data for every conditional. You didn't just know that 1800 is more than 1300 by a difference of 500 by some pattern recognition or by DNN. And you knew it because you went to school and learned logic. Humans fuse logic with connectionist models. to be able to make ourselves really powerful machines. And that's where the difference lies in what you're seeing here. The logical comprehension in our brain is understanding the conditional, the antecedent, and the consequent, and the alternative. Sorry. And Josh, of course, being the tough person that he is, decides to tell her to get the coffee from the moon.
Well, I know you're a big fan of Mars, but we'll get it from the moon today. What do you think? So obviously we haven't trained her to conduct transfers of coffee from the moon, but as you can see.
But you see that? That's comprehension. Not, oh, I was trying to classify what you just said into a bucket and play you a song. I was really thinking, oh, I understood you wanted me to get you coffee from the moon. I'm not able to conduct the transfers because the source is the moon, and I'm not able to reach the source, the moon, to get to you the theme, which is the coffee, to the object, which happens to be Josh in this case.
You know, and this is where, just think of the context here. All you type was the moon. It's contextual awareness. It understands what was happening before and is able to relate those, and it can shift between these different conversations. I've seen this in other things that you guys are doing. So, you know, this is a funny example of it, but what you're really doing is letting the machine understand it. And so, you know, I would love to see her brain, if we could also, we could start to see the back end of what is happening right here.
Yeah, so Dean, one other thing on the contextual part, which I think is important, you know, we did understand that in context, she's understanding the conversation and where the user started and originated. But if we were to have another conversation with her about pizza, for example, she's obviously able to converse with us about pizza. But if I were to say something like, what toppings do you like on it?
Right.
I'm hoping
exactly.
she'd give me pizza toppings and not ice cream toppings. And that's really important, right? So she's understanding that we're still talking about pizza, and she likes vegetables, meats, and condiments. So we can even switch that now and start talking about another subject and still refer to it, right? And maybe it's not pizza anymore. Maybe it's something else. So I can say, what do you think of social media? I hope she hasn't watched The Social Dilemma yet. Let's see. So I think social media is a great way to connect with friends. So do you use social media? So then I can say something like, I think my wife is addicted to it. I'm hoping she understands that she's not addicted to pizza, but rather social media, because we've switched context now. And that's kind of where Amelia's brain is being able to take, you know, as Chetan, you know, uses Zettelmeyer's thesis on the theory of spread activation, right? Different parts of her brain reacting, jumping over to the different themes of what's happening.
Right. So
let's look behind the scene. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go behind the scenes. And while you're doing that, just again, I want people to really understand here that everything that just happened there, imagine a chatbot. You've all had this experience, right? I put something in, I type it a little wrong, and it gives me back the exact same thing it said before. It's just repeating out what you said, if then that, right? If then else, but it's not truly breaking it apart. So now when we start to see that here, they're talking about pizza and Chetan's shirt color and all those things, what happens behind it? So I want to make a transfer. Okay. So tell me about what's happening to the brain here.
Yeah. So I jumped over to a domain where we've trained her on some banking intents. And the idea here is, with using natural language understanding and processing, I want to make a transfer. It's going to trigger a process. And what we'd like to show
allow
is
me, Josh, just to what Dean was just pointing out. One of the things that again, forgive me for taking advantage of the fact that we have a technically very astute audience. This, and just in strict confidence also, please, this is the fundamental difference between what you see in an intelligent agent and what you see in what we call chatbots. Chatbots, if you look inside the chatbot, it is classification and then intent, determination, and then a business process execution. I think I've captured about 99% of the chatbots. The fundamental design of Amelia is an abstraction of the brain algorithms. Right now, when we are having this conversation, what's your brain emitting? Your brain's, what you see in the middle of it, what is lit up is the semantic parsing and the semantic execution segments. That's your hippocampus. The collection of facts is lit up. Everybody in this audience has got their hippocampus firing right now. about all the facts they know about AI, from McCarthy to now, and all the things that they have. Their event, the frontal episodic that you see, and the logical triplets, you see the event-based memory and the logical triplets and the noise elimination, all parts of the disambiguation lit up here. You start to see the orchestration lit up, you start to see the trending happening in the brain, analytic part and the affective part centers of your brain. What we have been doing over the last couple of decades is seeing, after having studied, can we go to neuromorphic and neurosynaptic cores and mimic each one of those neurons and try and see if we can propagate the things. We really thought about long and hard and found out that the object is to fly. And did man's quest for artificial flight succeed when he stopped emulating birds with flapping wings and started to study the principles of aerodynamics, Bernoulli's principle? So can we look not just at replicating God's creation with neuromorphic and neurosynaptic cores, can we look at the abstraction of what comes out of these cores of human brain? And can we take the integration of what comes out of these parts of our human core, and can we provide that integration as a human equivalent level of response and cognitive capabilities? That is the fundamental design difference in what you are seeing in Amelia versus what you see in classical chatbot solutions. And forgive me, I'm taking advantage of folks who like beautiful kidneys.
I got to say, every time I talk to you, Chetan, I feel either smarter or stupider. So it's like I got to go take that apart and understand more elements of it, because there's so much packed into what you just said. You're basically saying I'm deconstructing the brain, I'm putting it into a cognitive AI machine, that making that machine think. The Turing, right? It's exactly what you talked about at the beginning. And if you look at what Josh is doing here, everything that he's been typing in there, it's breaking apart, right? Amelia is making associations with that. And you guys also have, I think it is, so you're doing context switching, you showed this, but there's also emotional awareness built into this, correct?
Absolutely.
We're looking at this mind map?
Yep. So if I say, you know, we can pull up the emotional awareness here. Oh, not sure we got doubles there. But you can see the emotional awareness score is being calculated based on the pleasure arousal and dominance theory, where this will actually evaluate along the conversation at each turn of the conversation.
Pragmatic implications of this are that the PAD OCC model is a three-dimensional modeling of human, fairly good, and sentiment, and that measurement today is fairly sophisticated. The practical application of this is in one of the largest telcos and Vodafones and others. All of them are able to see the floor that you see, the red line. They're able to see that if we are tripping below the floor, we need to be able to take an escalation measure and bring in an agent or a supervisor that can assist that. And if we are going above a certain green line, which is the extent of like the person's happiness with the service, that is a good time for us to be able to offer additional services. And that's practically being used by those triggers for the spectrum of like capturing, and now in some cases, obviously it's a sensitive topic, particularly in healthcare. So that's not at all employed in that, but in telcos, I can tell you that it is employed, where you are actually seeing the band, and based on that, you are applying different action agents.
You know, and what we're seeing here are the 600 plus, experts that you've got have all this behind them, and they have the ability to go back and utilize everything you've said. We've got 5 minutes left. I know you guys have another meeting. I want to make sure we can get through one thing. So I think, Josh, what you're pulling up here is I also was blown away when I saw that AI can program AI. So if we could just do a quick example of this, where using natural language and voice, you can program Amelia to create a digital, employee or a process flow. And this is where I want folks to pay attention to this, because now think about what it means for you and your business. If I have the ability to go back and take one of my experts and have them sit down and start just mapping out a process flow with a cognitive AI, you're basically capturing that knowledge right in. And that knowledge can then be enhanced and expanded and extended out to so many more things. And so that's where I see some huge opportunities. So why don't we walk through this really quick? Sorry to rush. I'm just trying to make sure we get all the really cool stuff.
As well. No problem,
Yeah.
Dean. So yeah, we'll try and showcase some of the conversational abilities that Amelia has. And what we've done is, you're looking at the back end of the platform now. We've actually created Amelia being able to listen to the user who's using it and do actions for them, take action, do the next step. So can you help me create a digital employee? So we can create a digital employee, and she navigates the website, the interface for us. So we can do something like iMasons banker today. And we'll go ahead, we'll create that digital employee. And now what we've done is we've created this much easier to use interface where you can actually have a conversation with Amelia and let her build the process for you. And what do I mean by that? And Dean, you touched on this a little bit, but I can continue to have a conversation with her and say something like, say hello and ask how much they want to transfer. All right. So here she's actually asking me to disambiguate for her. She's like, hey, I know you're asking the user for an amount. Which one do you want to use? I know I have a few different amounts in the system already, so we can just use the regular amount here, and then she can actually build this for us. So she's going to do a say task and then an ask task. And you'll see when I click on that, she's actually building this for me. Me as a subject matter expert, I don't need to know the syntax. I don't need to know, what an intent is, what an entity is. She's going to do all that for me. I said, say hello to the user and ask them how much money they want to transfer. Great. Let's get a little bit more complex. Get their balance from a back-end banking service. So now being able to integrate with back-end systems and use the ability to leverage APIs to add logic and conditionals into here. So you can see she's saying, okay, let's get the balance. And she's like, which API do you want to use? And I see we already have a banking API. We've inherited from the domain that we're in. And we can actually preview what those responses are going to look like. And then we can map those responses. So we can say, hey, I want to use this balance. Now I can take this, it's mapped, which is great. I can go ahead and I can apply that. And now I can use that balance in more conditional logic. So not only can I use it, but Amelia can use it when she builds. So for example, if I say something to her like, tell the user their transfer succeeded if their balance is greater than amount requested, otherwise get their address. So we'll go ahead and we'll see if she can do that. So actually building logic and different pathways for the user. So here you can see she's actually created multiple paths for me now. And she's added the logic for me on the edge. Hey, if their balance is greater than the amount they requested, great. Then tell them the transfer was successful. Otherwise, ask them for their address. Well, why would we ask them for their address? Well, maybe we should tell them to go visit a local branch because you don't have enough money, insufficient funds. Say you can visit our local branch at. So that's a pretty basic one. But let's say we wanted to add a map of the address they've actually just given us. Insert a map at the address. So here you can see we've actually used the variable that they've already provided to us to show them the real location of the map of where they're trying to get, a local branch at. And then we can say something like, say, have a great day and end the process.
It really is, Dean, a humbling experience to actually have your panel here talk about the amazing potential to change the world. These people are really getting it. This is a natural language interpreter. What are you doing? You are basically taking natural language, interpreting it to develop a program that can be executed on a cognitive brain. And without any training associated with the intent entities or disambiguation or BILE STM or convolutional networks, you're just natural language interpreter so that business users can transcode what they are saying and have Amelia transcribe it into the cognitive programs to be able to execute it.
Yeah,
and he's going to show maybe, I think, sorry, Josh, I keep, my excitement takes better hold of me.
So Josh, you're actually doing the real thing you just programmed.
Yeah. So it took us, what, a whole 3.5, 4 minutes to create this digital employee, this digital skill. So you can see my amount that I asked for was more than the 23,000 I had available to me. So it's going to say, what is your address? You know, I live at 17 State Street in New York.
Which is not a direct address. And it's going to be interpreted again. And there it is. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, right. Again, it's all those things that are behind the scenes that it's already built in, and then it can now map all those things together. So, and I know we need to wrap up just on our schedule here, but, you know, Josh, thank you for that view of it. Amazing stuff. But Chetan, what is the one thing that this group should take away from the conversation we just had today?
I think I'm looking at some of the comments from your group, and I think they really do get it. And this is a group that's going to actually further the state of further the state of cloud technologies from compute and storage to not applications, but now to digital employees. They're going to overlay cognitive technologies on top of the entire cloud infrastructure that they have created to be able to give their companies the edge. And the differentiation always lies at the edge, and the margins always lie at the edge. So I would be preaching to the choir, but I think that's my estimation from the panelists that are there on this call.
Awesome. And I'm just anxious to see what people are going to do with this, because when you get these brilliant minds together starting to apply it towards a real business problem, right? Magic happens. And I look at where we are in the state of the world right now. We don't have enough people in the right places at the right time with the right skills to be able to keep up with what's going on. The pandemic is showing it. We need cognitive digital colleagues to be able to help us scale. And those have to be human-like. They need to be able to be thinking machines. And so you guys have already made progress to be getting so close to that from an enterprise application standpoint. So really nice work. And I'm really interested about what the future is going to look like, because here we are 3 years later from when I first looked at this. And it's just, you blew past everything I was expecting again, right? So let's see what happens in the next 3 years. So Chetan, thank you very much for being on here. I really appreciate you sharing, your journey and what we're doing with digital labor here.
May I just say about the next 3 years? I would say the next 4 years, if you would allow me. I'd say by 2025, you will pass someone in the hallway, and you will not be able to tell if it's a human or an android.
Oh boy.
That will happen.
Amazing stuff.
We are getting to that level of the brain is getting the dexterity that comes with robotics is getting there. And I think you have had different schools of thought about 2030, 2035, and where we are seeing, if you can crack the code on the brain, the physical dexterity is getting to that level where it'll be hard to distinguish between who you are actually having a conversation with. And it's a true hybrid workforce. And is that perhaps going to be the best way for us to be able to extend the horizons past the planet we are in and become what Musk has talked about, a multiplanetary species?
The singularity, here it comes. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Chetan. I really appreciate it. We'll let you jump into your next meeting. And I'm sure this is going to stir a lot of conversation over the next hour and a half of our interactions. So thank you.
It's been a true privilege. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for your participation, and thank you for your comments. I'll benefit from it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.